Roughwood. Once Ruchwood is a farm, originally a estate, possessing at one time a small tower castle. Roughwood is situated near to the town of Beith in North Ayrshire, Scotland. The lands lay within the old Lordship of Giffen. The history of Roughwood. The name, ruck, in Scots relates to ground that is difficult to traverse, broken, uneven, covered with tussocky vegetation and the like. The lands consisted of 160 acres in Beith parish and 85 in Dalry parish. No improvements had been made on these lands, mainly composed of moss and clay, since 1770, and they were in a very poor state, with no roads, farmhouses ruinous, and few enclosures when acquired by the Patricks. The barony court. The baron courts were held at Roughwood by the Hamels or their bailies, as it is recorded that a court was held at Roughwood on the 25th of June 1724, with William Ralston of that ilk acting as bailiff for Hugh Hamel. In August 1725 Henry Adam of Moors Hill was bailier. However, in May 1740 Robert Shedden was bailier to John Shedden. Hugh Hamel having passed on the lands, rights and privileges permanently to the Sheddens and their heirs. In 1836 it is recorded that the Earl of Eglinton had discontinued the appointment of a baron, bailier and a baron officer, and the barony court had therefore ceased to function. The old tower. The castle was a simple fortified keep. These defensive towers usually had an entrance on the ground floor, giving access to a wheel stair to the first floor hall and to cellars or stores on the ground floor. The hall on the first floor usually had a large fireplace and window seats. The illustration is nearly or actually identical to that used for other tower castles, such as Busby Castle. The old manor house, a fortified tower of Ruchwood, had a coat of arms of the Hamel family on the front bearing quarterly, a star, or mullet, of 5 points, a crescent, a shake fork, the same as the Cunningham, and fleur-de-lis. The colours were not apparent at that time. This shield had a crest above, again a fleur-de-lis. Half of the old tower was removed to make room for modern improvements. However, in the half that remained an old doorway was retained, surrounded by a cut moulding. This coat of arms may be the same one that was present in the interior in the upper story over a small fireplace in the left of the gable. These armorial bearings are reported as being very worn, with the date 14 in the left-hand lower corner and first and third quarters obliterated. The farm. Mr. Patrick built a road through his lands, rebuilt the farmhouses, created enclosures, and added plantations that survive to this day. The Spearsland Way is an old road, now only suitable now for farm vehicles, that runs down from the old Craigview house near Bellscores Way to Burnside Cottage next to Roughwood Bridge and the Powgry Burn. The term, lands of Roughwood and Milburn, are used in regards of the Shedden family. However, no Milburn is located nearby, this property being already associated with the Sheddens before they obtained the lands of Roughwood. The farm may have been involved in flax dressing at one time. A retung pond is known to have existed at Windy House Farm, and a lint mill was located on the Powgry Burn at the far end of Kersland Glen near Long Bar. A room in Roughwood Farm has an unusual floor with 4 separately supported sides creating slopes down to a central area. This may have been a heckling shed where flax was processed and the spent material, called tow, was collected for further use in stuffing pillows, etc., or simply for removal, as it was highly combustible and fires in heckling shops were common. Cartographic evidence. Blayu's 1654 map based on Timothy Pont's map of the early 1600s marks a Ruchwood as a dwelling, rather than a fortified dwelling. Roy's map of 1747 shows the settlement of Roughwood,
close to a Langhead rig, a hill rig. Armstrong's 1775 map marks a Raywood close to a large area of moorland, a bog. Thomson's map of 1832 shows Roughwood standing off a crossroad junction. A dwelling marked as Mire, situated where the later limestone quarry was established. The 1856 25 in to the Mire OS map shows a limestone quarry in the area of the Mire dwelling and limestone kilns, together with extensive shelter belts. The 1895 OS map shows what may be a horse gin outside one of the farm buildings. Carvings and features. These unusual carvings are located on the older northern side of the farm. The fox or cat carving has no associated initials or dates. The bird is a falcon. The Ralston family crest. The painting of the animals is of recent origin. The falcon can be seen on the family memorial in Beith Cemetery. See photograph. The reason for the cockerel carving is unknown, however in heraldry a cockerel represented courage and perseverance. Roughwood has 2 owl holes built into farm outbuildings and the remains of a third. One is the standard design, but the other is triangular. These holes were constructed to permit access to barn owls, which would also be provided with a nesting area within the building. The benefit to the farmer being that these birds would predate the rats and mice on the farm. Typically owl holes have an entry and a landing platform, a perch in front. A stone used as a ventilation hole conforms to the design of a basic blind gun loop as found in fortified buildings. Blind gun loops allowed a defender to fire a gun from within. However, the view through this design of gun loop was limited. Dressing on some of the ashlar stone blocks suggests that they were prepared for a hulling surface, the equivalent of modern roughcast, typically found on tower castles. Associated families. The Hamels. A Walter de Hamule is recorded as holding lands in the Lothians during the reign of William the Leon. The estate of Roughwood appears to have been separated from the barony of Giffen before the time of Sir Hugh de Eglinton acquisition of Giffen in 1371. The grant of Roughwood, Roughwood lands and those of Broadston, Bradestanywood, to Robert de Homel were confirmed by John de Liddale, Dominus de Bradestane on 14 July 1452. These lands were granted in payment for attendance at the 3 annual head courts. The lands remained in the family by direct male descent for 8 generations. In 1600 Hugh Hamel held these lands. In 1643 Hugh married Catherine, daughter of William Ralston of that ilk, and had offspring, Matthew and Anna. This Matthew sold the estate to Robert Shedden, circa 1736, and died unmarried. His sister Anna married Robert Montgomery of nearby Craig House. The coat of arms, as engraved on the front of the house, were quarterly. First, gules, a mullet, or second, azure, a crescent, argent. Third, fleur-de-lis, or the crest was a fleur-de-lis. The supporters were 2 serpents, pendant a vigilance. Quote, Doby has it that Hugh Hamel sold the lands of Ruchwood and Bradestanywood to Robert Shedden, rather than his son. On 23 May 1713, the Sheddens were merchants in Beith. In 1720 Catherine Peebles, the widow of Matthew Hamel of Roughwood, protested against the rights passed to the Sheddens as it would prejudice her right to living at Mains of Roughwood for the remainder of her days. The Ulster connection . Some of the family of Hugh Hamel of Roughwood accompanied Hugh Montgomery to Ireland and became established there as merchants in the Dublin area. Hugh Montgomery brought a colony of Irish Protestants over from his Irish estates in 1600 and later a colony of Protestants from the area were taken over to the Ards and Clandborough areas of Ireland following the putting down of an Irish revolt.
Hugh was knighted by King James in 1605, giving him precedence over his rival James Hamilton. Hugh Montgomery, 1st Viscount Montgomery, 1560 to 1636, is known as one of the founding fathers of the Ulster Scots along with James Hamilton. 1st Viscount Clanboy. Patterson, the historian, records that the laird of Bradestane's Scotch colony, established in around 1606, was responsible for the introduction of linen weaving and manufacture to the area around Lurgan in Ireland. In 1636, Hugh Hamill of Roughwood attended the funeral of the 1st Viscount Tards in Newtownards, Ireland, as one of the principal mourners. The Hamills mainly settled in Antrim, and the North Ayrshire Hamills are almost entirely descended from Hugh Hamill of Roughwood. In the muster rolls for Antrim taken in 1631 are recorded the following family members: Archibald, James, John, 3, Hugh, John, Roger, William, living in the barony of Dunluce and Lower Antrim, Ballymoney and Ballymena town, the farm, remnants of estate plantings, etc. The Sheddons. Robert Sheddon, b. 1643, a merchant in Beith, had two sons, Robert of Milburn and then later Roughwood, and John of Marshland. Robert the heir married Jean Harvey of Green End, daughter of Robert Harvey. Robert acquired the lands of Roughwood from the Hamills in 1713 and had a son, John. In 1734 John Sheddon also held house and tenements in Beith, portions of the Old Glebe and the lands of Easter Braehead, Townhead, Knockbuckle, Cumings Braehead and Bray houses. John Sheddon, b. 1690, succeeded his father in the lands of Roughwood and Milburn and married Jean Ralston, eldest daughter of Gavin Ralston of that ilk. William Ralston Sheddon was born on 23 April 1747 and succeeded to Roughwood and Milburn on 1 May 1770. He lost property in Virginia as a result of American independence, moved to Bermuda and finally settled in New York, never to return to Roughwood. Upon his death a judicial sale of the estate was only avoided by Robert Patrick, eldest son of John Patrick and Marion Sheddon, b. 1733, paying the value of his late uncle's estate. Later he sold Roughwood and Milburn to his younger brother, William Patrick. Upon purchasing Hessiel Head, William therefore acquired his mother's family estate and also purchased the Woodside Ralston estate of his grandmother. The Sheddon arms were azure, on a chevron, betwixt three griffins' heads, a raised argent, as many crosslets fichy, gules, on a chiefle of the second, an escalope shell of the first, into two cinquefoils of the third. Quote, when translated the arms description is blue, on a silver chevron between three griffins' heads jagged, three red crosses crosslet pointed at the foot, on a silver upper third a blue shell between two red cinquefoils. The Sheddon crest was a lion rampant and the motto, Virtute et Fidelitate. Quote, by valor and fidelity. Litigation. Because Robert Patrick had been served heir to his uncle's estate of Roughwood in 1799. The junior branch, which descended from William Sheddon, b. 1708, youngest son of John Sheddon, b. 1643, never actually held Roughwood. William Ralston Sheddon, b. 1828, was the only son of William Patrick Sheddon, b. 1794, and unfortunately became obsessed with the idea that he was the rightful heir to the Roughwood estates. He entered on a course of litigation in the prosecuting of which he used up the whole of his fortune that he inherited from his father. The claim continued to be pressed by the family for many years, and when all their funds had been exhausted, his sister, Annabella Jane Sheddon, took up the pleadings and in a futile final effort conducted the case before a committee of the House of Lords. the Patricks and Ralston Patricks. In 1823 William Patrick held the lands of Roughwood. Dobie records that Neubottle, the ancient name of the lands called Windy House, Over Windy House and Nether Windy House, were purchased by William Patrick of Roughwood in 1810 and 1841. As stated above, in the 1870s these properties remained as part of the Roughwood estates, owned by William Ralston Patrick of Trerne and Hessiel Head. The portrait of William Patrick once hung in the Beith town house. He was responsible for many local improvements and was often asked for advice on parochial matters. The memorial to the Ralston Patricks of Trerne, Hessiel Head and Ruchwood, is located in Beith Cemetery. This memorial records the following details. William Ralston Patrick of Trerne, Hessiel Head and Roughwood, the 28th of November 1838 to the 22nd of January 1919. Jemima Allison, his wife, the 18th of August 1842 to the 6th of March 1929. Isabel Ralston Patrick, the 19th of December 1873 to the 19th of January 1893. Major Robert Ralston Patrick, the 3rd of June 1876 to the 21st of November 1925, and Constance, his wife, the 16th of June 1874 to the 9th of June 1970. Enid Helen Constance Ryder, the 25th of April 1906 to the 12th of September 1977. Her husband, Lyle Ryder, killed in action 1940. The Ralston crest is argent, on a bend, azure, 3 acorns in the seed, or a falcon proper. The family motto is Fide Marte, faithful and warlike. The Patrick family motto is Ora e Labora, pray and labor, and the crest a clenched hand holding a St. Andrew's cross. Quarrying and lime kilns. The underlying geology of this part of Ayrshire is such that the presence of the many limestone quarries is to be expected. Lime kilns to produce lime for improving the soil were a common feature of the countryside before the process became fully industrialized. Roughwood had at least 2 lime kilns nearby, and a large limestone quarry is shown on OS maps in the area of the old mire dwelling, of which nothing survives other than the surrounding shape of its hedgerows. The quarry has been infilled and the lime kilns demolished. These kilns would have created considerable pollution in the area, surprisingly close to Roughwood Farm, Burnside. This property is located near Roughwood Bridge on the other side of the Powgry Burn. William Patrick Parker and Elizabeth Stevenson Hamilton had a child, John Parker, who was born at Burnside on 6 July 1898. Burnside. He died on 19 July 1955. Burnside sits close to the Powgry, and the garden area is suggestive of a silted-up mill pond or such like. No evidence of a mill is extant. Microhistory. William Patrick of Roughwood in 1855 is said to have employed the builder and mason Robert Snodgrass to construct the barn wheel monument nearer to the memory of William Wallace. Dr. Hamill, the private physician to the Emperor of Russia, is said to have descended from the Roughwood branch of the Hamill family. A James Hamill is recorded as living at Swinridgemoor, in the parish of Delray in 1666. A Hamillfield house with a walled garden stands on Big Home Road in Beith. A Hamillfield church stood next door until destroyed by fire in 1917 and later rebuilt as the now redundant Trinity Church. The Parker family are recorded as living at Roughwood. Eugenie Gilmore Parker was born at Roughwood, as were her siblings, Mary, Anne and Hugh. Their father, Hugh Parker, was at Roughwood in 1795, and the family lived there for exactly 100 years, until moving to Kirkcudbrightshire, where they still farm. Their grandfather, also Hugh Parker,
owned a tile-making business in East Kilbride. It is recorded in a Kirkcudbrightshire local paper that on the 19th of May 1886 the marriage took place in Beith of Hugh Parker of Roughwood and Anne Ritchie of Mains of Beith. Pont's survey of the early 1600s records a bark lying in the barony of Kersland and Doby. Record that Barker formed part of the estate of Roughwood in 1874, belonging to William Ralston Patrick. A painting of William Ralston Patrick hung in the Beith townhouse for many years and is now in Beith Library. Notes. Sources: General Roy's Military Map of Scotland.